All right, welcome to Victory, the podcast. I'm Doug Ellin.
I'm Kevin Dillon.
Kevin Connolly.
Exciting. I mean,
Special guest.
It's not often we get real actors on this show.
Wow, you cut me deep, bro. You cut me deep.
And an actor that you worked with in the past and now
Yes.
in the present. So anyway, there's no real reason to go into this. John McGinley, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Johnny C,
This
my man.
This man needs no introduction.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you guys did Platoon 35-something years ago.
We haven't aged
together.
a bit.
Yeah,
have we?
you actually do both look great. Not a bit. But I want to get into a little bit about how, that experience was. And then, obviously we had a short run on this Ramble On show. It was only a day for you and 3 for Dillon. But I want to know.
I did more than 3.
Did you?
Yeah.
Stop.
How dare
cutting him
you.
short like that.
I'm out of here, man.
I think you did 3 or 4 times.
Well,
Well, anyway, so can you guys give us a little color on what the Platoon, one of the great war movies of all time, Oliver Stone, Johnny Depp, Berenger. I mean,
It just goes on and on. Can I ask Mr. McGinley a question first? About Platoon? Where were you career-wise when you get that role? Was that like the role, or where were you coming up to that?
I was doing. I was cast as Laertes' understudy over at the Public in a Kevin Kline Hamlet, which I had to step out of. I was guaranteed 1.5 days a week on Another World out in Brooklyn. And the funny thing about going out to Brooklyn for Another World, I lived in the Nucciaroni Funeral Parlor, 177 Sullivan Street. Wow. It's a 5-story walk-up where Cher in Moonstruck, that's where we see her go to work one time.
Wow.
And so the funny thing about Another World is that when you went out there, a sedan picked you up, a Teamster picked you up, and when you wrapped, they gave you a subway token. Wow. Which puts you in the right spot. It was like, once we don't need you,
You got it.
If that isn't a sign of things to come.
We
kind of
did that on Ramble On to you as well.
I remember when we went to Beaufort, South Carolina for Berenger's wedding.
Oh, right.
And you got recognized by everyone
I was
down there
Ned.
from Another World. He was big in Another World. They love that down south, I guess.
And this was after Platoon shot? Or
No,
was it
that's what I
After
had.
Platoon, yeah.
Right.
But I had Another World before we went to the Philippines. And so that was the minimum you'd make on Another World was $850 a day. That's what you make pretty close. That was the minimum on Broadway. So I'd already just come off doing Requiem for a Heavyweight with Johnny Lithgow and George Segal. And we we toured for a month in 3 cities, Dallas, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach. And then we came up and we previewed for 2 weeks and closed in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And John was unbelievable. John got nominated for a Tony, so did George, so did David Proval. And the ensemble was most of the Italian-American actors who would go on to be in The Sopranos.
That's unbelievable. And George Segal was on Entourage, played Murray Berenson, who Connolly had
The
some
best.
dealings with. I mean, one of the nicest people I've ever worked
Fact.
with, and obviously incredible actor. But
He was great in Requiem.
but John, you're at this point you're 24, 25 years old.
1985, so I was 25.
Connolly kind of threw me off now because I was going to do this on the Ramble On podcast, which I'm going to keep John around for. But now we're getting into more of a deep dive into your career, which I like.
just curious.
But were you? Where was the struggle? I mean, I know that's not great money, but you're already working with some of these incredible actors, and you're getting this amazing movie. Although Platoon, I wonder if was anyone certain that it was going to be something special?
Yeah, that's a question
or?
for both you guys. Did you guys know that it was going to be, or was it just like,
No,
well,
when
it's
we-
Like I
a
told
movie?
you guys, I do remember Berenger going, hey, this is, breathe in, guys. Take this in because this is as good as it gets. I remember him saying that.
On set.
in
And
terms
me
of-
and John and Berenger, we were like the 3 of us would hang out every day. We'd meet at the bar after
Absolutely.
work.
But script-wise and oh god, this is a terrible word. Buzz-wise in terms of the industry, where your agents was just like, guys, this is fucking big. This is Oliver Stone. He's this new guy.
No.
He had
Wasn't
already
like
written
that.
Salvador.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
we
he
saw it.
already won an Oscar
We saw,
for Midnight
John,
Express.
you went to the screening,
Oh,
right? We went to the screening of Salvador. I
Yes.
did anyway. And I
Incredible
was like-
movie, by the way.
When I saw that, I was like, Platoon's going to be good. Man. We got a
Yeah,
great director here.
but
man.
all the indicators were bad. When we got back, the big hit was Top Gun. And we hadn't shot Top Gun. We shot
yeah.
a relationship about men going and taking care of each other in war. And Oliver kind of ripped that thing from his sternum. And we got back, and Top Gun was the Reagan-era mechanical war. And I was like, we're fucked.
And I think it's hard for people to remember back then. Platoon, unless I'm missing something, was by far the most realistic war movie, certainly Vietnam movie ever made.
Still is.
Yeah, probably. But
Those guys did a good job with Hamburger Hill.
yeah, they've definitely come.
Hamburger Hill and Full Metal Jacket. There were good ones, but this was a specific this was like the draft.
Because
you go,
Oliver
right.
did 2 tours over there. He was teaching English at the American school in Saigon, and he felt like he wasn't contributing. He wasn't moving the needle at all. So he enlisted. So he was an infantryman. So that's why I say when he tore it out of his sternum, he did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so when you're on this set, was there a point when you started going, we got something special here, or still you just like, did you know you got Johnny Depp's going to be this giant movie star? Behringer's going to.
No.
Did he get an Oscar nomination or?
Yes, both him and Willem.
Oh, right. Willem, like we're forgetting Willem.
And I
Dafoe.
think Michael won for Hannah and her sisters.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I think we all knew we were making a great film. We just didn't know that it was going to be as big as it was.
100%.
Right. And you're in the Philippines. So you're coming off, and forgive me that I'm trying to get your chronology, even though I know your work so well. You really haven't done anything in a production like this, or even
No,
close
I was
to this.
third guy on the left in an Alan Alda movie called Sweet Liberty, where we shot out in the Hamptons. It was a great gig.
I like Sweet Liberty.
All these great actors, Michelle and Bob Hoskins and Michael and Alan and all these great actors. And but that was just I was third guy on the left.
I always thought it was interesting that Platoon, Oliver shot it chronological. So when you died,
As close as possible.
as close within reasonably possible. So when you died, you were then gone, right? So as soon as it was going to be like, yeah, we lose Dillon next week. I mean, there's,
Yeah, but Kevin and I make it all the way to the end.
Yeah, we make it
by
pretty
the time,
far.
By the time
you make it to the end, I do get killed.
Yeah, but
during
right-
the Tet offenses.
shooting wise, almost right to the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And what became strange is because the president, who was a woman named Cory Aquino, a woman in a yellow dress, that was her trademark, she had won a free and fair election, and the president said, I'm not leaving. And so when he finally got political asylum from Reagan in Hawaii, and his wife's shoes became the stuff of late-night fodder,
right.
she never had General Ramos, who was in charge of the Army, she never had the Army in her back pocket. So every Thursday, I remember like it was yesterday, there was a threatened coup. And we would have been great people to
Take hostage. Yeah.
Of course. Perfect.
Great
Dillon
collateral.
would be a great hostage.
Great collateral.
Well, I'll tell you what, my mom didn't want me to go over there. There was tanks rolling down the streets.
sure.
It was like crazy. So,
For sure.
Why were you? While
and a
you
lot
were
of actors
there,
pulled out because of it.
while you were
Bad
there,
move.
did you
Yeah.
have some fears about this aside from Oliver? Were there things you were scared
Yeah, I
of?
had a fear of dying. I mean, it was like there was.
You went to a war-torn.
No, but I mean,
100%.
while you were there, did you feel that sense of like this is so?
yeah. There was like
There were
you saw-
13-year-olds walking around with AKs right
Yes.
here, just walking. When we moved back into Manila, we were in a resort that Marco set up for visiting people called Porto Azul, which was beautiful, and it was a complete island in all the squalor. Once you left, it was sheets of Quonset huts that functioned as lean-tos for people's domiciles. It looked fake. The poverty was so profound. And we'd come back to Porto Azul, which was incredible. But once you left that property, it was poverty. And we finally, for the last couple of weeks, while Kev and I were there, we moved back into a hotel called the Manila Gardens in Manila. And that's where you see these young kids walking around with AKs.
Yeah.
Kids.
It is scary.
And so, John, you, Kevin, we'll talk about you a little bit, but you're doing Hamlet with Kevin Kline's playing Hamlet, and you're a theater guy, right? So then you get on this set, which I remember. I honestly remember the first time I saw you because I think that's the first time you registered to me, not in Sweet Liberty, but you just felt like one of these guys that was comfortable in that world and felt like a real soldier. I mean, did you have any experience with weapons or any of that stuff before the movie?
No, but I had been on that movie for the better part of 10 months as it kept getting pushed by revolutions and other things.
Me too. I was part of that early cast.
And so I had to drop out of Hamlet because we were supposed to go 8 months ago. And Oliver said, McGinley, you have to pull out because I need you. And so I did. I went to see Mr. Papp, who was like Johnny Friendly and on the waterfront. I mean, you would never cross him. If you got in that fraternity/sorority, the New York Shakespeare Festival, you stayed.
Right.
And I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to burn that bridge. And if he said, if you go to the Philippines, you'll never work here again, I wouldn't have gone. I could tell you that for
What
a
did
fact.
he say?
He said, Mac, we're going to do Hamlet again. When you come back, we'll do it again. And you won't be the understudy next time.
And I was like, I started crying. I couldn't believe it. It was like going to see The Wizard of Oz. I mean, Joe Papp was it.
Right.
And I was in. I got into the fraternity.
Right.
And as soon as I left the play, we got postponed for 6 months.
Jesus.
And then it all comes together even more because Dale Dye, who was on Entourage, who Kevin Connolly trained with
I
on a
did a
pilot
pilot
that
with
he
him,
did,
and
that
it
he
was hard.
tortured Connolly. What was it? Dale Dye is a real war veteran
Yeah.
and is just a master. What was he like on Platoon?
He's great. He's one of those people who's great at his job. He was great at his job, and since we called him Dai Wee, which means commandant in Tagalog. I think it's in Tagalog, which is the language of the Philippines.
I thought it was Vietnamese, actually.
Okay, the Vietnamese,
Yeah.
and he was Dai Wee, and he's who you wanted to be in charge. He's a leader of men, and he's good at his job.
Yeah.
And
It's like me. I'm a leader of men, Dillon. Would you agree?
No,
but people
I
got
can't
people
go
got
with that.
hurt in boot camp.
Notice how McGinley ignored that, but yeah.
Willem dropped a knife in his foot. He had to be, Tom dropped a knife in his foot.
Yeah.
Willem drank out of a stream, which is called a blue on a map. And it turns out there was a desiccating oxen about a quarter mile upstream. And he drank it. He had to be medevaced.
A couple guys dropped from like heat exhaustion. It was
Guys
really
dropped, yeah.
hot out there, and if you don't
What's
have
a-
enough water,
What's a young 20-something-year-old Kevin Dillon like?
I was actually 18,
Good to go.
God.
Beautiful and good to go.
maybe
Like,
19. Maybe
was he
19.
fun?
Yeah, we were game for anything.
Yeah.
You know what? Because my character loved being there.
Right.
I took on that role, and I just loved the whole experience of the training. We did 2 weeks of jungle warfare training. That was very intense.
It was heaven.
Sleeping in foxholes and I loved it, man.
I did
look
too.
back on it as some of the best times of my life.
Did you think that it was your weepy and whiny demeanor that led Oliver to cast McGinley in Wall Street and leave? How close were you to Wall Street? Did you read for Wall Street?
No.
You could have been. You should have been in Wall Street.
I should have been in Wall Street.
That's crazy.
I mean, McGinley is in.
I should be in everything, really.
I mean, you're pretty much in every six or
Oliver
seven.
Stone
Seven,
movies.
no?
6.
Six.
That's crazy.
So how does that?
Oh, Dillon's 2. I was going to say Dillon was 1 and done.
Yeah, Kev's
Sorry,
2.
Dillon.
I got
Sorry,
2. I
Dillon,
got
my
2.
bad. 2 good ones.
But
Yours
Dillon
is-
lied and said he could play the drums and begged Oliver, please, come on. McGinley's done 6. Give me
what
something.
Oliver
I did
Stone
lie
movies
about
you-
my drumming. I'm not going to lie.
What
Doors,
Oliver
you
Stone
should
movies?
watch
You
them.
did Platoon,
Talk
Wall Street,
radio.
Wall Street.
Talk Radio.
I originated talk radio back at Joe Papp at the Public, so he was good to his word.
Right.
And so I originated that with Eric,
Bogosian, who wrote that and starred in it.
Right.
and then Nixon and Any Given Sunday, and with Tom with the wheelchair.
Born on the 4th.
Born
One
on
of
the
the
Fourth.
fourth, great
Right.
movie.
No,
So I
quick
sorry.
question. I heard that there was some kind of a scheduling issue with Tom Cruise on Born on the 4th of July, and Oliver said, all right, well, let's go while we're waiting for Cruise, go knock out Talk Radio. Is that true?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So what I can tell you, though, talk radio, there's been like 3 times in my entire life where I went to the movies one night and went back the second night, and talk radio was one of them. That was one of the most, like, the first time I saw that movie, and I never saw Bogosian before that.
He's a
and
force of nature.
It was just unbelievable, and I actually wrote the part of I don't even know if you've seen Entourage, which I don't care.
Of course I did.
But anyway,
Every episode.
Andrew Klein was a character based on a good friend of mine, or the name, and I wrote it for Eric Bogosian and Gary Cole, who's amazing.
The best. We
Like-
did Office Space
Office
together.
Space, which we have to talk about.
So, and we're going to get Gary Cole on the podcast, by the way, because my
the
buddy
best.
ran into him. But Gary Cole, they call up, which I find so amazing for actors like you, and I have no
like
idea if you would
classically
do
trained,
this.
though,
But
you
Gary
know.
Cole is just as good as they get. And
question.
I get this call from Sheila Jaffe, our casting director. She's like, Gary Cole wants to play the Eric Bogosian role. And I'm like, I mean, listen, Bogosian is Bogosian. He's a mess. He's this, he's that. And she's like, he'll read. I'm like, I'm not making Gary Cole read with his great hair and his whole thing. There's no way. And he came in, and in 30 seconds, I'm like, I'll rewrite this. Like, this guy's just not good. So, I mean, are you?
But didn't he also pick up the sides and say, yeah, let's read it? Didn't he do something like that?
I mean, he
Kinda like just said, yeah,
I was
I'll
so
read it.
awkward because I haven't had a lot of experience with getting like a guy like that, and I wasn't asking him to read because I love him and I could write 400 things for him,
100%.
just not this role. But he's like, I'll read, and I was so awkward in the room, and I was sitting there, and I was like, just looking at him like,
Like,
he's
how
a
is
great
this guy
looking
reading
guy. I'm
for
like,
me?
but I'm just like, he can't. There's nothing he can do that's gonna make me think that he's the guy I wrote, and he did, and I said I'll change it. Like
That's
exactly
hard,
what it is.
man.
Yeah, he killed it. Is that something? Because I know Connolly, and I'm a,
No, I'm just not good at it.
it's a really hard thing. Are you comfortable to come in if you want to roll right now after all your accomplishments? Or you're like, I'll read.
Yeah, I'm really good at it.
He's He's automatic, bro.
By the way,
he's automatic.
he
I
does
am
not-
You
not.
can get good at auditioning.
I don't mean good though. Do you feel ever disrespected by that, or does that not enter the equation?
No, not if it's somebody that I really want to work with. Otherwise, no. Then I don't care. Then I don't care because there's only about 115 movies to watch and 600 episodes of television, so you could see the guy's work.
Right.
It's a pretty good sample size of McGinley shit that you can watch.
Right.
But no, if it's something I want to go to battle for, and I'll go after it hard.
And so, what was this relationship with Oliver like that he keeps casting you? Besides that, you're great. Did you have a good personal relationship?
I can
with
only
him?
say this, and at the risk of sounding arrogant, I knew how to make his life easier on the set. I could be a problem solver and help with other actors, which I teach all the time, without stepping on their toes. And I could just, like I worked with LT on Any Given Sunday, that great monologue he has in the sauna scene.
That was amazing.
And I got him to where he was really good to go when he talks about it. And then the trade-off was he got to explain a cover 2 to me on the floor of the then Orange Bowl. So I had LT, who I saw almost every one of his home games at the Meadowlands, explaining a cover 2 to me on the floor of the old Orange Bowl.
So when I was 14 years old, my brother's going to Carnegie Mellon, and I'm in a Marriott in Pittsburgh, and I'm playing Asteroids, and this guy walks in and like comes and plays with me. I've told you this before, right?
I don't think so, man.
And
I
Played Asteroids with Lawrence Taylor.
I'm an LA Rams fan from the movie Something for Joey and from Heaven Can Wait. That's how I decided to
course.
become a Rams fan. Okay, so I got wear whatever. So
Bandwagon
it's actually maybe 80. I'm trying to whatever year it was. So I'm in playing Asteroids. Guy comes over who's a big guy, and he's like, "Hey kid, I swear to God, like out of the Mean Joe Green commercial, can I play with you?" And I'm like, "Sure," And then people told me the Giants are staying there. They're playing the Steelers in a preseason game. So I asked him for his autograph. And the only Taylor I knew on the Giants was Billy Taylor, 38. And he signed it LT Taylor, 56. And I was like, I don't know who the hell this is.
That's fantastic.
And then 4 weeks later, the season starts. And I became a diehard Giant fan. And Lawrence Taylor,
defensive player of all time, in my personal opinion.
maybe the greatest
Not even
football player
close.
of all time. And
Yeah,
I
maybe.
agree.
yeah,
Maybe.
and he followed me on Twitter
You
like
could
a
make-
couple years ago, which made me
You can
very
make the
happy.
case
Wow.
for it for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Connolly's going down.
No,
Do I have to give you the Heimlich?
No, I don't.
Do you know the Heimlich?
Sure.
I knew McGinley would, actually. He could just
I
fucking
saved my
get-
father-in-law's life with it.
Is that true?
Yes.
Really?
In what kind of situation?
We were at our dinner table at the house. He went to the bathroom, and we were calling in there for him because whatever, it was a disproportionate amount of time. And when I went there, he was doubled over, and I just grabbed him, and I was ready to break his ribs to dislodge it, and I thought I did because I was so scared, and that adrenaline hits,
Kicks in,
and your
right.
father-in-law, who I love, I was just like, I pulled that motherfucker, and it disengaged whatever was in there.
It really makes us all think because I've took the Heimlich when I had my kids and I don't know it. And what an asshole you'd
I'll give
feel
you
like
the
if
Heimlich.
someone choked in front of you and you couldn't do it. And you reminded me when they broke the ribs. Remember All in the Family when I think he broke Sammy Davis Jr.'s ribs, Archie
that's
Bunker
good.
with a Heimlich maneuver. So I forget exactly what happened, but for anyone who's talk radio is a movie that you should watch immediately. Though it's just incredible, and any given Sunday is
One
too.
of the things about both Dillon and McGinley here is that they can do these roles like Platoon and these things, and then they can take these comedic turns, right? So, Office Space. I could watch it over and over and over and over again. It never gets old. The idea behind it never gets old. What's that like? And do you know what that is? Because at that point he did what? Beavis and Butthead, right?
No, I think
Mike
he
Judge-
did that after, didn't he? I think Beavis and
No,
Butthead was after.
Beavis and Butthead was prior.
Oh, was?
Yeah.
And so everybody who went into audition for this got a cartoon, a rough rendering of Gary Cole's character in the movie. And so we all auditioned for Lumberg. And Gary got it, obviously. And so Mike called and said, do you want to play one of the downsizers? And I'm like, well, it's not on the page. He goes, you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, well, I hate when people say that because that means you're just going to be on the cutting room floor.
Right.
And he goes, no, you can do whatever you want. We shot in Austin. And I went down there, and he put as much slack in the leash as he had promised. And it came out, it was all improv.
It was a
The
fun
whole
shoot.
scene was improv. Top really.
There were bare bones.
Right.
And the guy who's next to me, Paul Wilson, I think, a Chicago improvisational guy, was locked in. And what you
Gary
got to remember
Cole
about
Do you remember the
improv,
scene that he's talking
Yeah,
about?
of course I do. I've
the
seen that
thing-
movie 100 times.
the thing about improv, which you have to remember, is that somebody can initiate and somebody can react. You can't have two reactors or two initiators. And Paul was completely, I mean, that's just the structure of improv, if you're going to be able to repeat it and explore it. Because if somebody wants to initiate everything, then you get a can you top this, and improv sucks.
Right.
And so Paul, without unspoken, just was like, we just knew I was going to initiate. And he was kind of the reactor. And so when he said, when I go Naka, because I couldn't think of the guy's name, and he goes, Naka ain't gonna work here anymore. I was like,
Oh, this guy's good. You know, Dillon, when
a
Larry
good
David did Entourage, he said no script. And Dillon went into a panic attack, but then Dillon crushed it with Larry David, and then Dillon didn't want me to write scripts anymore. He just wanted to
Oh man, would
make
be
it up
great
as
to
we
just
go.
do
I like
everything
scripts
improv.
better.
Yeah, I do too.
And if you're not a big improv guy, I don't blame
It's a
Dylan. You're not a big
disaster.
improv
It's just
guy.
your home life becomes a lot better when it's improv. You don't have to study your lines all night long.
I like getting them in my skull.
Yeah. I look, when improv works, it's great, and you actually often can feel how much more alive and real it feels, even than the best scripts. But at the end of the day, to me, full improv stuff usually is, you're like, come on, tighten this up, tighten that
painful.
up. But yeah,
It's always the best in the freebie, right? All right, freebie's up.
Yes.
Let it fly. Get it all out of your system right now.
But that's because we already got the bones of the scene in takes 2 and 3, and so now you can have one.
Right.
yeah.
And that's the way Oliver is. Oliver wants it the way it is on the page. Because he wrote it, obviously. And then he wants Kev to bring his flavor, and he wants, like I taught you how to find the seam of a beer can and bite it. I remember teaching you that.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kev put that in the movie.
Wow.
That's
you
not on
saw
the
me
page.
bite a can, and you were like,
Let me show you how to do it without chipping your teeth.
Help me get it in there.
Yeah, well, those old cans used to all have a seam, and as soon as you see the seam, when you bite into it, you can rip it off really violently without taking your teeth out.
Dillon did one here, like last year, to
I think
remind
it
us
was,
of the scene from Platoon.
St. Patty's
St. Patty's
St. Patty's Day.
Day.
We-
St.
Scary
Patty's.
day.
We had
Yeah.
we did a podcast, John. We just drank a bottle of whiskey and did a podcast. It was pretty.
It was ugly.
insane.
It was most of it landed on the
Did people
cutting
get a
room
little
floor.
sideways?
Yeah.
Or did-
Yes.
Sideways is Connolly.
Connolly
attacked
got
me.
shit faced. Let's call it like it
That's
is.
not true. I can
We
handle
almost had
my
a fist
booze.
fight.
I can handle my booze. But Kevin, you said something interesting about Platoon. Kevin said for all of the realism that was in Platoon, there was the one thing that didn't add up on Platoon was the beer can, right?
Yes,
What was it?
because they were made of tin back then, not aluminum.
In
So
19...
you couldn't have done that. And I told Oliver, I said, by the way, they were tin. He's like, I don't care. I want it in the movie.
'Cause it's
nobody will
great.
nobody will ever notice.
It's
and nobody
fantastic.
ever questioned it.
Right. That's pretty cool.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, John, is it true? And I've heard this from more than Kevin and working with Oliver. Oliver's a tough guy, right? Is he going to at some point test you? Do you have to stand up to Oliver at
Oliver's
some
not
point?
a tough guy as much as he is in any room. That saying, the smartest guy in the room?
Right.
Oliver is.
Right.
Yeah.
And he knows what I tell actors with Oliver is that if you can, what a Kentucky Derby horse has those blinders on.
Right.
Well, if in that creative frequency band, if you can fit into Oliver's blinders, you're going to be in nirvana. But if you want to function out here, he's going to crush you.
Right.
Because it's his movie. It's not that much of a collaboration. He wrote it. He knows it backwards. He knows what he wants. He knows what's going in. And if you surprise him with some fabulous flavor that's germane to this frequency band, you win.
Right.
But if you want to rewrite, Shakespeare, which is Oliver's text, you'll get crushed.
Right.
Now, obviously, Oliver he's a genius who's made some of the best films of our time, but he seems just a little nutty. Is there a recklessness on the set that that's worrisome or no?
There wasn't on Platoon or Talk Radio. A little bit of
radio in the studio, so yeah.
yeah. we're in Las Colinas down in Dallas.
That'd be hard if that one.
Well, there's a little bit of craziness on Platoon.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
not much because there were no days. He didn't have any days. The whole shoot was maybe 27, 28 days.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's just nuts. And so you got to burn pages.
Right.
And we were.
And is he
Guys were hauling cameras. The actors, the ensemble, were hauling cameras to the set.
That's unbelievable.
It
And
was a non-union movie, and
Yeah.
so people were bringing mags.
we had to go so
'cause-
deep into the jungle, we were all carrying.
It's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
and is he an
And
actor?
plus, if Guy Wee told you to do something, you did it.
Yeah. Captain says, do it, do it.
So is he an actor's director? Was he?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like on any given Sunday, there's a little bit of disengagement, and you can see it. You
Right.
can feel it in the piece. I mean, parts of that film are great. Cameron's great in it. Al's great in it. Dennis is. I mean, there's a bunch of really great. He got fucked on that movie because the week before we went, somebody from the NFL properties finally read it and said, "Well, you can't use any of our logos." So
I wondered about that.
if a
man.
professional
That hurt.
football team doesn't have on Green Bay green and yellow, you look like a Canadian football
It's
team.
so weird because Ballers just put a Dolphins uniform in the
I know.
pilot.
I
always wondered
never
how
understood
they did
it. It really hurt. And
hurt
there's
the
no
film.
bigger Oliver fan than me, and it just really took me out of it.
Yeah.
Especially
had
coming
all-
from Oliver. Like,
And we
what-
had
how
all the
could you-
guys. We had the stunt coordinator of all the football movies. I forgot his name, but he's the best. And we had all these athletes, and the collisions were profound. And that wardrobe hiccup really hurt
Were you there when LL Cool J and Jamie Foxx? Didn't they get into a
the whole
fist fight?
time. Yeah, it was
How
real.
Did you know that?
No.
LL Cool
But
J.
remember, Oliver loves that shit.
Right.
So
He does. Yeah.
when some of the African American guys weren't down with some of the guys in Platoon and over in the Philippines, Oliver loves that shit.
So what, he encouraged fighting.
No, not encourages it, but he kind of seeds the landscape with quicksand.
Who'd you have there? Forrest. I mean, the cast is so crazy. Forrest Whitaker, David Keith.
Keith David.
Keith David. Sorry.
Both good actors.
Johnny
There is a
Depp,
David Keith.
Defoe.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
I mean, it's a crazy cast. So were there any? I mean, we talk a little bit about one in Ramble on our pilot, but were there any good battles in Dillon fight anybody on the set of?
I did.
Did you?
Did
fight?
you?
Well, when we did the, I got to a little scrape with one of the Marines that was training us.
Really?
was it
yeah.
like enough? Get off my back.
These guys are kind of dickheads, you know. And they
Yeah,
were
they
giving
were.
us a hard time, and yeah.
Tell us, Tim, what happened?
I can't really remember,
some
man.
point, did
I
I
was so
say-
hammered on coconut wine. They
got-
called it coconut wine. It was like 150 proof.
Lambanog.
Lambanog.
While you're
It's
shooting, while you're shooting, you drink.
No, this is after training.
Right.
This is
right.
after training.
I got into a scrape with Drew, rest in peace.
another
because
Marine who
I
trained
sleep
us.
with my mouth open, and he was in my hooch with me, and a hooch was just something about this length of this table, which was just buried underground a little bit. And we were 1 hour on, 1 hour off in these exercises at night, where we were at listening posts, and Drew would be asleep, and I'd be looking, and then I'd see what time it was and wake him up, and I sleep with my mouth open. So he took a water bug. Two water bugs,
That's not
which are
funny.
they're like cockroaches, but they're big. They're like the size of your hand. And he took another one, and they were copulating, and he put it on my tongue. And I woke up, and I had spit it on my fatigues, and I saw what it was, and I just went after him. And then we were broken up pretty quick. It was more like a wrestling match. But I was like, dude, what?
Now,
he,
see,
he
he
was a
was
tough guy too.
I'm
He was the
horrified.
He was a
toughest
tough
one
guy.
out of the
I'm
group.
horrified.
Was
But
he?
so were you back then. You were ripped.
He
Yeah,
was
by
a
the way,
tough guy.
he's still ripped. But was he being funny or was he being an asshole?
He's been an asshole.
Yeah.
But it was in the name of like, I'm going to toughen these guys up, right? I'm going to toughen these actors up.
I guess.
They
But
had
I
that
thought
attitude,
I
for
thought
sure.
it was more bullying shit, and I loathe bullies.
Yeah.
I like to bully bullies.
He's a big guy, McGinley.
Oh yeah, and back then, I mean, you were just working out every day by the pool, doing your crunches,
If you don't notice, John, he's trying to get somebody to say his shoulders are bigger than yours now because he's like, yeah, back then you were big, but
Kev's
now-
fucking
mine,
Kev looks good.
Johnny still got the shoulder. He's got a barrel chest.
Yeah,
Look at
no,
this
he's
guy.
a big dude.
Barrel chested.
So, all right, well, let's get to, we've talked about some of the greats you've worked with, Oliver Stone, Kevin Kline, Johnny Papp, and
No,
then-
Kevin, I didn't get to work with Kevin. I had to pull out.
That's right. So you rehearsed, I'm
Yes.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I love Kevin Kline.
So do I.
I would have loved to see him as Hamlet. I, never
I
saw
always
that,
wondered
so-
about the understudy thing, especially for a role like that.
That's so sick to
So
me.
you're just like sitting there, like, all right, everything looks good. I mean, it looks good. He's ready to go. And at the last minute, he could not be going, boom, you're out. You're
Yeah,
out
but
there.
the week before I got out of school, so spring of '84, I got to understudy John Turturro, which would then go on for a year and a half in Danny and the Deep Blue Sea, a play by John Shanley, who also won an Academy Award for Moonstruck.
Yeah.
And John had the Wally Pipp Lou Gehrig syndrome, where he said he was just like, if I ever go down, you're going to fill in for me, and I'm never going to go back on.
Right.
So I made up the actors, and I was the assistant stage manager at Circle Rep. excuse me, for almost 6 months before I got to go on. He finally went to do Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna, which
Yeah.
everybody in New York wanted to be in.
Right.
And I got to fill in for him for 5 shows for a whole
Were
weekend.
you a nervous wreck, or I mean, when you finally get that call, you've been waiting for so
No,
long?
because I lived in a funeral parlor on Sullivan Street, right around the corner from the theater, and I had the keys to the theater. So I used to walk the play and do both parts for almost 6 months.
By yourself.
By myself. Because I'd open up the theater and I would walk the stage. It was a thrust stage. So
Because I got to tell you, I think about that all the time with the understudy of a play like Hamlet. I mean,
Right.
do you get to rehearse with anybody during the
just saw
week?
Hamlet.
I mean, you have to do it right. You have to do it. You
Yes.
got to know it inside out.
But we were the fight director du jour when we were doing Hamlet was a guy named B.H. Barry, and so if you were going to do anything with any swords, B.H. would choreograph it. And so I went through about a week of choreographing the fight at the end of the play with Laertes, and then I had to pull out. So I just got a little taste.
Right. And how do you compare? I mean, I can't imagine after doing something as exciting as doing that on a stage, that it's as fun to do a movie where it cut, stop, this and that. What do you like better?
I don't have a preference.
Yeah.
I mean, you still someone calls action or the curtain goes up. You got to pick a verb and do something.
John's like a pro. I don't feel like a
he's a
fucking
total
pro. I
pro,
feel like
man.
a fucking idiot.
I don't feel any of
really
those
do.
things.
I really don't. I feel nervous. Like I'm nervous thinking about you doing Hamlet in 1984 when you haven't done it and getting a call. Oh, Klein slipped. You're up.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
to
like
me,
insane
that to
to
me would scare the crap
I mean,
out
that
of
would-
me.
it's
Dylan,
insane.
you need to know
But you
you're-
are prepared for
Dylan,
it.
you're a
so,
game
I mean, you're
time
ready to
guy.
go.
You need a game day regimen.
Yeah.
Right? You're not a filler. You're not. It's tough to be a filler.
Yeah, I think I could do it. I mean, you're ready for it. You're prepared.
Plus, you got
you're
you
locked
got your
in.
entree into the New York Shakespeare Festival. I was like, I'd mop your floor back then to get in the New York Shakespeare
It's
Festival.
about that passion, and you really gotta. I mean, I just think the idea of sitting there on that stage and doing 2.5 hours by yourself for 2 parts, and then you're on the stage. What if you start doing the other part in the middle of the fucking play? I mean, it's
Nah,
just.
you wouldn't.
I mean, I would.
I
Start
over
slipping in and out of character, just like your Instagram personalities. Wait, who am I right now?
I
Who am
over prepare to under deliver.
I mean, you.
I really like to over prepare.
Well, I got to tell you, it was. We'll get to our pilot now because it was such a pleasure having you on the set. And if the show goes and you're available and liked us, we would love to have you back. Because obviously it was, you worked half a day or 3/4 of a day, or it might have even been a full day. But talk about what was it like getting back to Dillon and Charlie Sheen together? When was the last time you guys kind of hung out? Even
Like putting on a Rawlings broken in perfect outfielder's glove. It just because Kev and I've done 2 together. We also did Midnight Clear, and
Great movie
We've
also.
also remained friends over the years
Yeah.
and played a lot of golf.
Played a lot of
and
golf at Malibu Country Club, which is no
Kev
longer
also has a child with special needs in his family, and I'm very good friends with his brother who has a child born with Down syndrome, and he's been out to Denver with us, where we have a group called the Global Down Syndrome Foundation. And so I know Matt for a long time, but Kevin and I have been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And what I tell actors all the time is that the lens is an X-ray machine, and all actors want to bring affectations and either a lisp or a tic or something. I'm like, stop. It's an X-ray machine. And so what Kev and Charlie and I went through reduces the profundity of the lie. And if you can reduce the profundity of, I'm not Dr. Cox, I'm not O'Neill in Platoon, but if you can reduce that a little bit and buy into it, the camera suffers that as really good acting. And so to be with Kev and play in your guys' piece, there wasn't that much acting.
and you're playing yourself too. So did
yeah,
that,
but that's in the context of between action and cut, you're still playing at something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be with Charlie, who I love, and we did 2 back to back. We spent 2 years of our life together in a really important time. Doing Platoon and Wall Street back to back was a big deal, even in retrospect.
Yeah.
And Kev and I spending time around the planet, whether it was in the Philippines or in California or in Utah, you get impacted by that in a really positive way. And so when you call action, Kev knows I have his back. There's nothing's going to go wrong between action and cut. I won't let it. And if he had a problem or Charlie had a problem, I would fix it with them. And they know that. And then all of a sudden that reads as camaraderie. And it's just because I will not let you fail. I just won't.
I love it.
And Kevin, whether he knows it on at the tip of his tongue, he knows that. And Charlie knows it.
Well, I love it, and we're gonna get John's gonna stay with us on the Ramble On podcast. We're gonna get him more into because we got into script. I mean, you helped with the script, and we talked in depth about characters that you were not even in scenes with. So I think that's really interesting. But
it was interesting. John was there. We rehearsed some scenes, and he was kind of watching from afar. Have you ever done any directing, or have you thought about it?
No, but I've produced I've produced 4
stuff?
movies and a TV series,
Right.
and so, for my purposes, having my hands on the purse, I can handle somebody to do the kind of action and cut, but I'm gonna micromanage in the background.
have you not wanted to direct, and not even an episode of Scrubs? You didn't want to go just give it a shot?
No,
Why is that?
because it's Billy's piece,
Yeah.
and it's because it's Billy's piece, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Just like Entourage was your piece. You invented it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm sure you were input friendly for creative ideas. But no, I wasn't. I'd rather produce something.
Right.
Right.
All right, good. Well, I got I got a script you sent me that I'm going to look at as soon as, because we're going to do a little reshoot, and really
It's not
based
a
on
reshoot. It's additional photography.
additional photography
Difference.
that honestly John's comments on the script, they've stuck with me, and there's not a problem. It's all there, but we needed a little more bolstering of the character and at the beginning, so I think we'll get that. But appreciate you coming on. You got
Yeah,
anything
man.
else? This
John,
was great,
big
man.
fan,
Really.
dude. I really appreciate you coming
Thank you,
on.
guys.
We could break down this guy's career forever.
Absolutely.
But thanks for
He
coming.
makes me feel very humble and
Yeah.
shitty,
It
and
makes
feel
me
like
feel
I'm not
what?
ready.
Makes me
I don't
feel
feel like a
unorganized.
professional. I'm being
Makes me
serious.
feel
I really don't.
You guys
feel
are
like-
bush leaguers.
I'm just like
compared to him.
staring down the I'm just like sitting here staring into the corner thinking, where did it go wrong?
I'm just thinking, like, I'm trying to picture Connolly going, I'll come in and read for fucking. I know you're
What, you don't
casting
think
Ray
I'm
Fiennes,
Hamlet?
but
I
I
don't give
could
a
fucking
shit.
kill
I'll
that
knock
thing.
out
My
Hamlet
attitude is
right
more,
now.
how dare them make me read? Johnny's like, I'll do it. No problem. I got this.
It's a great way to be.
If
So,
it's special.
but we're
Yeah.
gonna have more with John on the Ramble On podcast. So check that out, and that wraps up. Oh no, Dillon wants to talk about his movie coming up, so we can wrap it up.
I got to see Frank and Penelope, a movie I did, which is really good, you guys.
I
You
can't
like
wait
it?
to see it.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
loved it, man. I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah.
When do we get
Really
to see
cool.
it?
You're gonna show John, see if he liked it.
Well, you're gonna have to wait. It's gonna be in the Cannes Film Festival. I'll probably go out for that.
Oh, congratulations.
And yeah,
I've never been
we'll
to
see,
Cannes.
but I just felt pretty good about it. Not
What
gonna
is the film about?
It's kind of a little bit of a thriller, not a horror, but a thriller. I think there is a difference between
For
the
sure.
two.
Of course.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there will be blood. I guarantee that. It's
Dylan
it's
can
good.
tell you
Got
about
some
his
really good
character.
acting.
He didn't read the whole script. He just tells you about what his character
come
did, some thriller type stuff.
Dylan used to say that. By the way, I know John does this, but Dylan used to say that was his famous thing. And I said, "What are you doing in this episode?" Because he would just read his.
He-
Well, I wouldn't read the Ari stuff
He
always,
wanted
but
it
I
to be
would
a
read all of
surprise
our stuff.
because he wanted it to be a surprise when he saw it on TV.
Yeah, my character wouldn't know what Ari was doing.
so funny.
If my character knew what Ari was doing, it might change what I'm doing.
If there was some ripple effect to
Yeah,
the
it could be a
Johnny
rebel
Drama
effect, and it
character,
could change everything.
yeah, I want to keep it a surprise for Sunday night.
I think it's great.
That's fantastic.
I love it. All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Victory the Podcast. Kevin Dillon might be missing for a couple days. Maybe we'll try to get McGinley to
a couple
replace
weeks,
him.
possibly.
How great of a understudy would McGinley be to
McGinley
Dillon on
is-
the
Oh
podcast?
man, I don't want a guy like him understudying for me. You know he's going to steal
Exactly.
it. eventually.
Dillon's never coming back.
So,
So,
Dylan, listen, I wanted to talk to you. Your contract's been up for a minute, and we were thinking, no, man, John, thank you so much for coming in. Man. We really appreciate
What's
it.
Al say to Duval? You're out, Tom. You're out.
yeah. All right.
That's it.
Victor the podcast.
Victory!